HaKadosh, Boker Or. I just wanted to share with you a beautiful idea on this week's Parashat, which is actually going to be connected to also Rosh Hashanah. In our Parashat, it's Tavo. And we know that there's a nechama, which we're going to speak about, a consolement. We're going to speak about, there's going to be the differences between the first klalot, right, the curses, which are in Parashat Bechukotai, and the second ones, which are in our Parashat, in Tavo. But before going through the differences, which is actually also another beautiful shiur of the Ramban that we'll share afterwards, I'll just start with this one. It says in the pasuk, "Ve'ayim lo tishma be'kol Hashem Elokecha," and it will be if you're not going to listen to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, your God. All these curses will fall upon you, and they will attach you. They will get to you. They will cling to you. You will be sold to your enemies as slaves, and to maidservants. Nobody will even want to purchase you. That's in Devarim Kavchet, Sukim Tetvav, which is 15 until 68. Okay? So now the Gemara Megillah comes and it says as follows. Lamed Aleph Amud Bet. Says the Gemara. Tanya Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar, Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar comes and he says, Ezra instituted to Bnei Yisrael that we read the klalot of Torat Kohanim, which is Bechukotai. Remember, Torat Kohanim is Vayikra, because Vayikra, since it has to do with all the things of the Korbanot and everything like that, it's called Torat Kohanim, the Torah of the Kohanim. That's what it's called, Torat Kohanim. So we read it before Atzeret, before Shavuot. Mishneh Torah, and the klalot of Devarim, which is called Mishneh Torah, Sefer Devarim is called Mishneh Torah, Parashat Tavo. We read it before Rosh Hashanah. My Tama, what's the reasoning? It says the Gemara, Amar Abai says, V'yiton Hashkitza b'Seitz Shakish, Kedei shetichle shana v'kilulotea. We want to finish the year in all its curses. So therefore, before Rosh Hashanah, you want to read all the curses. You're not going to read it after Rosh Hashanah, obviously. You understand? So therefore, we want to read it before Rosh Hashanah. You finish, right? You want to finish the curses. So you read it before Rosh Hashanah. However, though, if you pay attention, there's a difference between the tochachot. Tochachot is the reproach, the rebuke, right, of Parashat Bechukotai, which is again, Parashat Bechukotai, Vayikra, chapter 26, Psukim 42-44. That there, the Torah finishes with a nechama, a consolation. V'zacharti beriti Yaakov, I'm going to remember the covenant of Yaakov. V'beriti Yitzchak and the treaty of Yitzchak. V'beriti Abraham and the treaty of Abraham. Eskor, I'm going to remember that. It's Eskor, I'll remember the land. And even after that, when they're going to be the lands of their enemies, I'm not going to be disgusted from them. And I'm not going to destroy them to annul the treaty with them. So the question is, why is it that there's a nechama, there's a consolement? But here in our parasha, it doesn't finish with any consolement. It just finishes and that's it. So the question is, why is it that the Torah here in our parasha didn't finish with some type of a nechama, consolation? Who was asked this question? The Radbaz, Rabbi David ben Zimra. Remember that the Radbaz was the rabbi of the Shita Mekubetzet, Rabbi Tzal Ashkenazi, and Rabbi Tzal Ashkenazi, the Shita Mekubetzet, was the rabbi of the Arizal HaKadosh, right? Shlomo Luria. So just to understand, right, who we're talking about, okay? So the Radbaz comes and he asks, Nechelek Bet, the Shut in his response on Tavshin Samechtet, he says, Sha'alta mimeni, you asked from me. Lama lo nechtevet nechama beklalot shel vaya ki tavo. Why is there no consolation? Just like the klalot of Imechutai. Tshuva, the answer. This question was asked in the Zohar HaKadosh. Zohar Chadash Parashat Ki Tavo. And they came, right, and they answered as follows. Gam kol choli v'chol makah asher lo katuv b'sefer HaTorah azot ya'alem Hashem alecha ad yishamedcha. He says, any type of a sickness or a wound which is not even written in this Torah, HaKadosh Baruch Hu will bring upon you to destroy you. When he says over here, Ya'alem, he will bring up, it's Lashon Ha'alama, lo min Lashon Ha'ala. Hala means to bring up. Leitalem is to close your eyes. We just did the Ben Ish Chai previously this morning, and we were talking about Hashavat Aveda. And Hashavat Aveda, it says, Lo tuchal leitalem, you cannot close your eyes from them, right? So therefore, what does that mean? Ha'alama. So now if you're going to tell me, so when it says Alecha, it means Allah, because when it says HaKadosh Baruch Hu will come and bring up Alecha, upon you. So you would think that the word Ya'alem means to bring up, and that's why it says Alecha. He says, no. He says, it's actually not like that. Okay? The two, and not only that, after the Pasukim, it should have said right, the nechama. So you could say, according to the Midrash, Te'ena chanami de pshati de kra is a klala, but it's a ramuz, it's a hint of the nechama. Okay, that's what they actually say. But even though the Zohar HaKadosh actually comes and he wants to say that the ones of Parashat Bechukotai is Keneged the Bet HaMikdash HaRishon, and the ones of Kitavo is Keneged Bet HaMikdash HaSheni, that will be Blina the second shiur, which is the Ramban. Nachmanides actually brings us down and he explains how the first one was all, and that's why there's going to be differences in even the punishments, which we'll explain in a few minutes, which means that the first Parashat, the Klalot of the first of Vayikra, first Bet HaMikdash. The Klalot of Kitavo is the second Bet HaMikdash, and that's why, right, there's no nechama, there's no consolation, because we still have the destruction of the Bet HaMikdash, right? And then there was a whole story there of Rabbi Shimon that he was sent with a piece of paper, right? And he went and he answered them, the tochachot, he went and he said them Lashon Rakah, right? And he says that there's a lot of nechama, but it's hinted to it, okay? Fine. The Rabbi himself, though, comes and he answers as follows, because remember, this is what he says, this is the answer of the Zohar HaKadosh. The Rabbi himself comes and he answers, and he says as follows: that which it appears to me to answer, we don't need a nechama in this week's parasha. You know why? Because the nechama, the consolation, is already on the side. Because there's no psukim which is not written the name of Hashem, Yud Kei Vav Kei. And the name of Hashem, Yud Kei Vav Kei, always shows mercy. So therefore, in the same klala, in the same curse, you see the consolation, because you see the hand of Hashem right then and there. And that is the biggest consolation, right? That's what he comes and he says, Leodia that amidal ibrachamim, everything is being done with rachamim. Al derech machatz v'yadav terafena. What does that mean? That he's the one that's hitting you, but it's the same one. And therefore, there's no greater nechama like this, right? This, if you remember, was the famous story, right, that they always said. If right now a person is walking in the street and all of a sudden somebody comes and he starts hitting them, they get afraid, right? But if he turns his face and all of a sudden he comes and he sees it's his father, what happens? He's consoled. Why is he consoled? He's still getting the trechas from the father. He's still getting the beating. But the reason is that he knows that the father, no matter what, he's giving it to him with mercy. If he comes and he sees that it's going to be a stranger, could be a bandit, a thief, a this, a murder, he's afraid for his life. But the second that he turns and he sees that it's his father, he knows that his father is doing it for his good, and he always wants his good. So therefore, he's already consoled. That in itself is a consolation. Another answer that the Rabbi comes and he says is, in Parashat Atem Nitzavim, it's the continuation of what we just said in Vayaki Tavo. And therefore, in Atem Nitzavim Ayom, which is next week's parasha, right, is basically, remember, Nitzavim is always before Rosh Hashanah. So he says, in that there we say, which means that the sof is the nechama. Which means you're right, in Kitavo itself, there's no nechama, it's in Nitzavim. But the Nitzavim is a continuation of Vayaki Tavo. So therefore, that's also part, right, of the consolation. That's what we're actually just saying, right, until here. So now we're going to make a differentiation of the Maran Harav Miponovich, right? Shlomo Karaman, he comes and he says, the Rav Ponovich, he comes and he gives a different answer. And he says like this, listen very carefully, because again, this connects to Rosh Hashanah and Kippur. The Gemara Masechet Megillah Lamed Aleph Amud Bet says, right, that what is the differences between the tochachot, the curses, right? We say tochachot as rebuke or reproach. We actually call it berachot, because we don't want to say the word klala. So that's when we even call them up to the Torah, we say likro b'Torah musar eloken, right? Which is a musar of Hashem, right? Or berachot, right? We call them the berachot because we don't like to, it's a euphemism, because we don't like to call klalot. The berachot of Hashem, shu shishi or whatever the aliyah is. So he says, right, that we're talking about the tochachot of Parashat Bechukotai to the tochachot of Parashat Dvarim. And the nafkamina is, are you allowed to stop in the middle? Right? Why? Because if they're curses, we don't want to stop in the middle. Right? Because you want to do all the curses in one. You don't want to start stopping in the middle and, answering amen on berachot and all these things. And maybe the amen was on the curtain. No. Yeah, everyone, one thing, and that's it. One in one picture. So it says over here like this. It says, right, that when we're talking about the klalot of the Chumash of Vayikra and Bechukotai, right, they're all b'lashon rabim. They're all in plural. It's not singular. It's all lashon rabim, and it was said by HaKadosh Baruch Hu himself. The klalot of Chumash Tvarim in Parashat Kitavo, they're all lashon yachid. Right? It's lecha. It's all singular. And Moshe Rabbeinu is the one that's saying it. And he's the one that's saying it. It's not Hashem saying it. It's Moshe Rabbeinu from himself saying this. So v'lacher, and therefore, Parashat Bechukotai, that it's written b'lashon rabim, is a tzibur. So therefore, the nechama is the consolation of the congregation, of the community, of everybody being together is lo me'astim v'lo ge'altim, which is avtacha to Knesset Israel as a group, because Am Yisrael, we are muftach, we are certain that we'll always continue, and we will never be forsaken. But Parashat Ki Tavo, which is said that it is said as a yachid, as an individual. So therefore, when we're going to be sick, b'torat yachid, so then there's nothing afterwards, right, without a condition, and therefore there's no, it has to be good. So therefore, there's no nechama because it's an individual, right? So now he comes and he says, when the Torah comes and he's going to give a rebuke to the yachid, the Torat yachid, there might not be any nechama, there might not be any consolation. But when it's a tzibur, HaKadosh Baruch Hu will never give up on them. He will never come, right, and get rid of them. And that's why he comes and he says, that the Zohar comes and he says that even at the end of the Tochacha, there is a bracha nisteret. There is a hidden bracha. What's the bracha? They want to sell you, but nobody wants to buy you. Which means that Bnei Yisrael come and they say, you will always be Am Yisrael. You'll be Am Yisrael b'netzach. Why? Because even if the enemies come and they want to do all these different things and everything, they don't want to buy you. So you're always considered an Eved Hashem. You never became their Avadim. Right? But that's also going to be to do with Klal Yisrael, the Tzibur, everybody as a whole. But to do with the Yachid, the one, right? Nobody says Ven Koneh. It's only as everybody together. Okay? And therefore he comes and he says, and this is actually an Or HaChaim HaKadosh. The Or HaChaim HaKadosh comes, says Mefurash, right? Perek Kavchet, Pasuk Mem Zayin. Right? Now we're actually coming, we're saying, why isn't there a story written in Nechama? Because he says, Lo ne'emra nechama la beklala, which is klalut Yisrael. Okay, Mashenken yechidim, he says, no, to a yachid it doesn't happen. Okay? And that's what he also says in Parashat Nitzavim, when HaKadosh Baruch Hu is talking about the mishpacha achat, or shevet echad, he says, Umacha Hashem et shemo. He's going to destroy it. But he doesn't mention the nechama. But when he's talking about that, it's going, why? Because it's yechidim. Right? Okay, fine. Now, if you're going to ask, what about the other? Why is it that klalot of bechukutai is lashon yachid? Right? Why isn't it that be'emet? He should have said it in lashon yachid, an individual. Why did he actually say it double again? So he comes and he says, I would have thought to say that he's not going to punish only the yechidim, but not klal Yisrael, right? And therefore he had to actually come and give it to us as a rabbim also as well. So the words of the Rav Miponovich were said in the siyum of Seder Nashim, in the Bet Knesset, right? And what happened was, this was after the Second World War, when everyone went through obviously a lot. And the Rav Miponovich, he was coming and he was suffering and everything, right? And mamash, that so many Jews, right, went and they were lost. And he comes and he says, right? He comes and he says like this, do not come and give up hope. Why? Because a lot of people said, what's going to be the end of Am Yisrael? So he says, you're right. For every single individual, and that's what happened in the Holocaust, we don't know. Why? Because every single individual is an individual, right? So therefore, we don't know what's going to happen to them. But because it was Midat Adin. But to do with Am Yisrael, we will always Chai V'Kayam. We will always be there. So therefore, that's why we have the Avtacha. We don't have to, right, worry about it. And we don't understand exactly what's happening now, right, because of what's, of all the miracles and everything, which means that we know, right, that whenever we're in Rosh Hashanah, right, and Kippur and all these things, right, we know that there's always the Midat Adin. Do you know the Tur comes and he brings down in Siman Kuf Aleph that we come, we wash ourselves, we take haircuts on Rosh Hashanah. Why? Because of the Midrash. The Midrash says, Amar Rabbi Simon, Kimi Gadol, which is the Elmaleh Ibn Isa, which means that we already know that we're going to come out. Usually a person is going to life and death sentence, going to put on black clothing, he's going to be in suffering. Why? He wants to show remorse. B'nai said, we come, we put on nice clothing, Yom Tov clothing, we eat, we drink, we're enjoying, we're benefiting. What's going on? But rather, it's because of the same thing. Because basically what happens is, this is the Ori Cheskel, he comes and he says, right, Bedina Prati, in an individual, the Ori Cheskel Levenstein, comes and he says like this, he says, which is the Mashkiach HaPanovich, he says, to do with an individual psak, meaning every single Jew on his individuality, we don't know, we're not Betuchim Adin, we don't know what's going to happen. So therefore we don't know, and that's why we have to be afraid. We have to be afraid of the judgment, right? And therefore it's coming upon us to mamash, we have to work, silichot, teshuvah, we're going to be afraid, pachad adin, everything that you want. But to do with all of Klal Yisrael, we know we're going to be saved. We know we're going to be okay. And that's also what the Saba Mikelem says. Saba Mikelen comes and he says that we're going to be muftach, that it's going to be good. We're part of the tzibur, and we're going to be part of everybody. And that's what we see by the Navi, right? With the story of the Shunami, that she comes and she says, don't pray for me. Why? I'm with everybody else. Which means she didn't want you to come and pray only for me. Pray for everybody in general. Right? A person needs a refuah shalema, pray for everybody in general. Right? A person needs zivug, you pray for everybody for shidduch in general. Why? If you're going to take the person out, they're not part of the tzibur anymore. You want that they should be part of the tzibur, and once they're part of the tzibur, now all of a sudden it's a completely different thing. Okay, and that's what the Zohar HaKadosh says in Bereshit. It says, you don't want to mention the name, right? When it's a time of deen, right? Where do you learn it from? From Shunamit, from the Shunamit. Right? Why? Elisha, no, don't pray for me separately. Pray for me from everybody else. Right? So just like the Rabbeinu Bachai says, Kol yachiv yachiv v'chol ma'asav nifratin. You cannot have a person that he's not going to be punished, right? Just like but once it's going to be everybody together, so therefore it's going to be Vayeh Yom, the day of Rosh Hashanah. So therefore it's fitting that day that everybody's coming in front of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that he should be afraid. Mitzad the Yachid. But Mitzad the Rabim, once a person is going to be everybody together, don't worry about it. We have Nechama and we have all, right, of the best of everything that we have. Rav, the Ziknei Musar, Rav Itzel Blazar, right? This is the Koch Ve'or. He was a student, right, of Rav Yisrael Salanter. Remember, Rav Yisrael Salanter was the one that brought back the Musar movement, which means that, because technically speaking, it's already brought down to learn Musar, that Al-Khida brings it down, and all the, but he was the one that he made it like a movement. And now they have to mamash, they focus on Musar, right? Just like the Chavetz Chaim, he did that on Lashon Hara, and certain people, you understand? So it was certain movements. So the Musar movement was Rav Yisrael Salanter. So he came and he said, if somebody wants to be Zocher Yom Adin, right? They used to always say in the name of Rav Yisrael Salanter that you have to be Osek B'tzorchet Tzibur. You have to be the one in charge of a Tzibur. What does that mean? Right? It could be that you're in charge, right, of a Kolel, right? You're in charge of a community. You're in charge of a Gemach. You're in charge. Why? Because it means that everybody needs you. You become a man, right, of the people. Now he says, so now, what does that mean? At the end of the day, what is that going to help you? What? Hashem is lacking people? So what's the big deal? He'll get rid of him and he'll get somebody else. What does that mean? Right? But rather, when a lot of people, they need him, it comes out that when he's going to be Olen, Bedin Shel Mala, for Zechut, or for Chova, right? He's not going to be judged by himself, but rather he's going to be judged with everybody that's around him, right? And not only on his life, right? Because also on everything that everybody needs, right? Everybody needs, it's going to be on him. So all of a sudden, everything that every single person that they need, it's going to be on this person, right? Whether it is that, so imagine you're a person that you come and you support A, B, C, D, E, F. So all of a sudden they come to you, and in Shamayim, when they're going to come, they're going to make the judgment, they have to take into consideration A, B, C, D, E, F, and everything. Because all of a sudden, what's going on? You understand? And therefore was Ramuz, this is a remez in the Pasuk in Tehillim. The Pasuk in Tehillim says, Hada v'shalom nafshi mikerov li ki berabim hayu imadi. He says, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, you rescued me, b'shalom. You rescued me with peace. Why? Ki berabim hayu imadi. Because I was always with the Rabbim. The Rabbim that they always needed me, they were always with me. And this is incredible that we have, right? Because this is actually the Pasuk, Katsur Tamim Paolo, Ki chol derachav mishpat, ele emunah ve'naven. This is what we were referring to before. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is called, right? El emunah. Hatzur, right? The tzur, the rock. But we're referring to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Tamim Paolo, everything's innocent, everything's perfect, right? Tzmimut, everything's perfect, right? Chol derachav mishpat, all his actions are justice. Yeah, El emunah ve'naven, the God of emunah and the God of what does that mean? See, so why is it saying El emunah? So then obviously pshita the. If I say you're a trustworthy guy, do I have to say you're not a crook? I don't have to say you're not a crook. If I say you're trustworthy, you're trustworthy. I don't have to say anything else, right? But rather to explain this, Yisrael Salanter says you have to understand the following. Somebody comes in front of the shofet, in front of the judge, and the judge says he needs a death penalty. And he comes, right? Why? He went and he killed a few different people. So obviously, right, at least they're going to come, they're correct. At the end of the day, this guy killed, he should be killed. Yeah, it makes sense. But he comes and he says, now imagine right now all of a sudden, right, he comes and he starts saying, you know what, you should know you're right? But you should know the following. Yeah, what's going to happen to his children? Right? What's going to happen to his wife? His children are going to become yatomim. They're not going to have any support. His children are going to be orphans. The wife, this, that. So now all of a sudden, right? What's going on? He comes to his defense and he starts mentioning all these things. Now, obviously, in a court of civil law, they're going to say, listen, we don't take that into consideration, right? At the end of the day, right? You killed. This is your punishment. Katish. Oh, they're going to start now paying attention to, right, the children, to the wife, that's it, right? But HaKadosh Baruch Hu is not like that. When HaKadosh Baruch Hu comes and he's going to be gozer mita on a human being, they take into cheshbon everything. The suffering of the almanah, of the children, of the wife, the widow, the children, the neighbors, his workers, everybody. There's not one person in the world which is going to suffer something, even as a grama of a grama, means like mamash, like that it's not taken into consideration. HaKadosh Baruch Hu takes everything into consideration. And that's why he says, Lo chashid HaKadosh Baruch Hu. All the time they went and he used to say to whether it's to rabbis or people, he says, what? Do you suspect that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to do judgment with justice without judgment? Meaning that he took that into account. Well, you think that just happened for no reason? There's always a reason. There's always something that's happening. So a person cannot just say, he suffered for nothing. Doesn't exist. There's always something. So he comes and he says, that's what the Torah says, El emunah v'nave. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, it's not that he does mishpat emunah, that he does it with truth, and that he's not going to take bribes and all those things. But rather, no. It's actually going to be, he takes everything into consideration. Now, according to this, now we understand something which is incredible that the Chachamim say. Chachamim say, Echad mi bnei ha-chabura shemet, tidag kol ha-chabura kula. If one of the people of the group, they pass away, everybody in the group has to be worried. Now, don't tell me that they have to be worried because they think that maybe they got corona because he had corona. We're not talking about that. Yeah? What does that mean everybody has to be worried? Why? So some people think, listen, the Malach HaMavet is there, so he's in the vicinity. So he's in the vicinity, take care. Maybe he's around and he's still around, so you have to be careful. He says, no. The reason why is because of what we just mentioned. Because basically, if we were not guilty, he wouldn't have died. If we were not, meaning if we were worthy, he should have still been alive. Because then he shouldn't have died because of one of the people which are around him. And that's why it's so powerful to understand. And that's what Rav Itzele, Peterburg came and he said to save from Yom Adin. To be a person that everybody needs them, because if so, since so many people need him, there has to be at least one person that he's not fitting for this yisurim, for this suffering, that it's going to affect him. And therefore, it's actually going to have an effect on him. And he comes and he says, and that's not only just to do with mita, with death, but it's with everything in life. Any type of a suffering, it will not come to a human being if it wasn't for the fact that they went and they took everybody into consideration, right? Everybody was taken into consideration, right? And that's what he says. Rav Shach used to come and he say, right? Why is it that Metushelach, right? The Mabul was pushed off until Metushelach. Metushelach was the one that died. He lived the longest on all time. Metushelach, and because of him, the Mabul was also pushed off. So he says, why? So you could have a sped, like a normal eulogy. So the question is, what's going on, right? The Mabul was going to kill everybody other than Noach, his children, and his wife, and the animals. What do you care now about some eulogy, right? That everybody is going to perish in a few moments. But rather you see from here that the halacha is that even if they're going to become judged on death, but it could be that they were going to be saved from whatever it is, even from the individual, they wouldn't be destroyed. So because of that, they wanted to have the eulogy properly. People learn from the eulogy, and then all of a sudden what happens? Could be that they're going to change. And that's why we actually say, we just learned it in the Gemara in Ketubot. We just were doing Daf Yomi, and we said over there, Tov, we brought down the Pasuk in Mishle, Tov lecher betavel, lecher b'mishteh, b'asher usof kol adam, v'achai yiten libo. What does that mean? It's always better to go to a mourner's house than to go to a wedding, because the end of all people are there, and therefore the chai, the one that's living, will place it to his heart. Right? What does that mean? I once read a beautiful chidush that says, "V'achai yiten libo." Only if a person's alive, he puts it to his heart. Because people could go to Shiva houses every single day, but they don't pay attention. if somebody's alive, they pay attention. They say, you know, 1 second, this person, he passed away. Anybody could pass away. You understand? This person was he was a doctor, and he was doing exercise, and he had the incredible diet, and he just dropped dead. Why? Because Baruch Hu said so. Which means he controls the world, not because of anything else. It doesn't matter anything else what's going to happen. You're right, we have a mitzvah of taking care of our bodies and everything that you want. But we don't have the key. It's not a license that you buy, right? It could expire without anybody even knowing, right? So therefore, what happens? A person has to pay attention to that. So says Rav Shach, the reason why, because there could have been one person that did teshuvah, and then the entire world would have been saved. So because of that, we went and we stopped it. Right? Meaning Hashem stopped the Metushalach. Wait, we're not going to bring the Mabul yet. The Metushalach die. We're going to do the sped. We're going to do that, and now you can bring the Mabul afterwards. So he says, look how incredible it is. The way that the Torah is full of emunah, that we understand that just like one person said, mamash, every single thing that's happening is already, right, the concept, right, of what's going on. And that's the same thing with Bituach Chaim. If you remember, we already brought down, we had an entire shiur on it, the machloket, whether it's permitted or not permitted. But if you remember, we brought down the Chazon Ish, is it permitted to buy life insurance? And he wanted to say, right, that there was once a person that he went and he decided he wanted to come and he wanted to get life insurance. The day after he got the life insurance, right, he went and he passed away. Yeah, mamash, he passed away. So what happened is that she was coming and she was saying, Baruch Hashem, right? Why? The husband got life insurance. So since the husband got life insurance, Baruch Hashem, right? At least now she has the life insurance. And he says, but she didn't realize that if he wouldn't have got the life insurance, the husband would have still been alive. Why? Because as long as he didn't give the life insurance, he was the sole support of the family. And therefore, since he was sole support, he was living because of his family, not because of himself. He was already going to die. But because of his wife and children, and that he had to support them, right? What happened? He was left alive. The second that he got the substitute, which was life insurance, we don't need the husband anymore. So therefore, they don't. Why? Because he died. Now they have life insurance. So for them, that's the support. So what happened? He passed away. It's the exact opposite of the way to look at it. You understand? The exact opposite. So again, in the shiur, we did bring down that since it became the minhag that everybody gets life insurance, so there's a Moshe Feinstein, there's a Vosner, that okay, you could get life insurance. You understand? But the shkafa behind it, meaning the outlook behind it was you're making it less dependent. People are less dependent on you. I remember somebody once came to me and they said, Rabbi, you should know, right? I just went and I asked my advisor. I went and I told him he got a life insurance for $1 million. So he went and told his advisor, listen, maybe you should get 2 million, right? This is before nowadays, and now the 1 million is worth nothing. You understand that once upon a time, $1 million was $1 million. Now, what's $1 million? $1 million is nothing. You understand? He went and he said, maybe you should get 2 million. The guy, the advisor comes and he says, listen, I would be careful in that. I don't think you want that your wife wants you dead. Yes, I mean, maybe she's going to start praying that you should die. Because she wants getting such a big amount of money. What are you doing? And I said, like, what's going on? But again, it's the outlook, the perspective of what a person has to understand. So that's what a person has to understand, what's behind it. Kel emunah ve'en avel. And that's why it's so important to be part of the kahal, to be part of everybody, the zichuyot of everybody together. I remember that there were some people that we were in the yeshiva. There were some buchurim, they said, to be in a yeshiva, very long amidah, very long everything. So they wanted to go to a shtibel. They wanted to go to a small little tiny, shul or whatever it is. They would pray very quickly, come back, they would eat in the yeshiva. Yeah, they were there, kilu, you understand? They would pop in a few minutes here, a few minutes there, beginning to end. Kilu, they were there the entire time. But really, were they? They were in a little tiny Bet Knesset, whatever it is, I don't know where. Understand? Very quick tefillah. So I remember he went and he gave this shiur and he said, you should know that you're going to be judged according to the kila where you're in. Which means the kila where you're in, that's where they're going to judge. And therefore, if a person comes and he's part of the yeshiva, he's judged with the yeshiva. If he's going to be praying in a little tiny shtibel over there, he's judged with that shtibel. And that's why you should always try to get the most important place of where to pray, because you're going to be judged according to that kila. That's your kila, that's your rabbim, that's your tzibur where you're going to be, that Hashem comes and he's going to judge you right on that time. And that's why it's so important that a person should pay attention. Sometimes they come and say, yeah, but Rabbi, I want to go to this, it's a nice hotel, take it easy. Yeah, but who's your tzibur? Who's your people? You don't even know if they're religious. You don't even know what's going on. You need, you understand? So yeah, the person has to pay attention to that. That's what a person, but what? A person that everybody needs you. Why they need you, whether it's for this, whether it's for that. Become a person that you're always needed. That's the best life insurance that you could get in this world. The best life insurance, you're a person that everybody needs you. You're guaranteed life. Why? Not because of you, right? But because of everybody else. Because even if Chas v'Shalom, the person themselves were already supposed to go, they will live all those years because of everybody else that are going to be there. Okay? Shabbat Shalom.